Sally, tell me about the 64 years of marriage. It's not very common to be able to hear people being married that long.
So I went home with a back covered with ink, and I did not think he was a prince. Well, I think that one has to be pretty resilient, share a lot. We were truly partners, which I really appreciated, because I'm not a real shrinking violet. I know a lot of people feel they're forced into things. I never felt that way. And if I didn't agree with what they were telling me, I did not back down.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk Senior Living. I'm Jewell Buenavista. And today we have a special guest. Her name is Sally, and she's going to share with us her life moving to a retirement community and being married for 64 years. Sally, tell me about the 64 years of marriage. It's not very common to be able to hear people being married that long.
Well, it started when I was pretty young, because we were just a little over 18. We got married right out of high school, and then my husband went to college. So it was a different experience than lots of people have.
So tell me about that. Tell me about your husband and being married for 64 years.
Well, my husband and I met when we were in the 4th grade. And it wasn't a happy meeting.
Did you fight over Foursquare or something?
No, but I sat in front of him, and I came to school wearing a sundress with straps on it, and he rode all over my back. And the teacher wouldn't pay attention to me, so I went home with a back covered with ink, and I did not think he was a prince. Anyway, we went to 4th grade and 5th grade together, and then I moved to a different school. So we didn't meet up again until junior high. But even then, we just were casual acquaintances. We didn't start seeing each other, if you want to put it that way, until we were juniors in high school, towards the end of school.
So how is it? Wow, you've known each other for a long time.
Yes, we have. And our parents were friends, so.
So 64 years of marriage. Tell me about the 64 years of marriage.
Well, as I say, we started out, it was not the easiest, because he was in school and I worked some and went to school. And so we had kind of a difficult start. And then I got pregnant with my son and had him while my husband was still in school. And so I dropped out of school and was a mother.
So share some happy moments with what's your favorite part of being married to? What's your husband's name?
Richard.
Richard.
Dick. He preferred to be called Dick. We had many good times. If I were to try to choose a good time, I would say the birth of our children. We had 3 and we lost 1. We have 3 and one died as an infant. But most of the times were really good. And my husband was a real joker, and humor was always a big issue. And so we had good times. We worked hard because, of course, he was in school and I was working and being a mom, and it wasn't the easiest. But then once he got out of school, he was a teacher, taught for 35 years. And things got much better, of course, by then. And then we had the other 2 children. So I would say happy times were with the family, with our insular family, but also with our extended families.
What's your secret to lasting for 64 years?
Well, I think that one has to be pretty resilient and share a lot. We were truly partners, which I really appreciated, because I'm not a real shrinking violet, and so my husband put up with a lot. And we really got along well and had similar goals in life, and so it was actually pretty easy. We had our moments, but like everyone, but he was just such a good sport.
So he was a teacher. What did you do? before you retired?
I did a number of things. I worked for a podiatrist for a while he was in school. And then I was an event planner and banquet hostess at a hotel for 7 years. And then because of my pregnancy situation, which was I had my son, and then before I knew it, I was pregnant again and had a daughter, which I did not think was optimum planning. And so I went into the family planning business. I worked for Planned Parenthood for 25 years.
Oh, okay.
So that was what I did for my major career.
So he was a teacher, you worked, and you had great marriage, and you had your 3 kids. Tell us about your journey now into moving to a retirement community. Like, paint that picture for us.
Well, first of all, we lived in a small town in Minnesota, and we lived there pretty much nonstop for 35 years. And it was a great little town and a great place to raise your children. But at the point that he was ready to retire, we retired, and we moved to our lake place, which was in northern Minnesota up by the Canadian border. So we spent the last 22 years that before we came here, we spent the last 22 years at our cabin, which became our house. I mean, we remodeled it so that it was no longer a cabin, but was a regular house. It was his dream to build a log home, and so he built most of it himself.
Wow.
And then had some help at the end, but really did a lot of it. And so that's where we were before we moved here. And the decision to move here, unfortunately, I made. First, we moved to a town in Wisconsin where my son and daughter-in-law lived. My husband became ill, and so he wasn't able to make these decisions anymore, and so I had to pretty much take over and make decisions. So we moved to Wisconsin, and then his problems progressed to the point where really he couldn't even handle that. And my 2 daughters who lived here at the time just said that this was a better place for older people and that the ice and snow was not good for either one of us, so they convinced us to move out here.
To San Diego.
And so at that point, he wasn't able to make the decision, and I just decided we were coming.
So let's go back to that time, Sally, because a lot of people, they may be in that situation, but they don't even know where to start, right? Like, go back to the time where your husband was, he was declining, and you saw it, you noticed he was declining. Walk us through that what were going through your mind, your feelings, like, where do you start?
Well, his first problem was he developed prostate cancer and had surgery and had radiation and everything he should have done. But it came back. So he had that, he was battling. And then I noticed all of a sudden his memory wasn't what it should be, and he started to decline in that way. So eventually he developed full-blown Alzheimer's. And it was at that point where he just couldn't put things together.
Did you have help at the time?
Oh, no.
You were doing everything yourself.
Right, and that was one reason why we left the lake place, is because up there you don't hire help. There's nobody to hire. And so, I couldn't handle, we had 40 acres. I couldn't handle it.
Wow.
And so my son said, well, why don't you move where we are and we'll help? So we did that, but they traveled a lot, and so it was a great place. But as I say, it got to the point where he couldn't handle any of the physical part of that, or mentally he declined to the point where I had to do all the management of the money and all of that. So as I say, my daughters who lived here said, Mom, this is too hard, you're going to have to go somewhere.
How did you feel about your children telling you that?
I had no problem. I'm a realist, and I really didn't, I was looking at all that anyway. And so I know a lot of people feel they're forced into things. I never felt that way. And if I didn't agree with what they were telling me, I did not back down. So
And you were thankful that they probably...
I was, and I still am. They help me a lot, and they're very involved with me, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Okay, so how did you, where were you, Minnesota? You went
To Wisconsin.
no, but before that you moved to...
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin,
I moved from
okay.
our lake place to the townhouse, which was in the town that my son lived in.
Got it.
In Wisconsin.
And then now to San Diego.
Right.
How was all of that?
Not easy. If I'd have had my choice, I would have stayed there. I loved it there. And I had lots of good friends. We were very spread apart. My nearest neighbor was a mile. And so we were very spread apart, but we were very active in our church, and those people, we were like a family. And it was really good. And so I really didn't want to move, but I knew I couldn't handle things, and so there really wasn't a choice. And I thought, that was my husband's dream. And I thought, oh, he's going to be just devastated. He didn't care. By that time, he did not care. So as from his point of view, the move wasn't horrific. It was harder for me, of course, because I really dealt with all of it. But there again, my kids came through, and we sold the property because they already had vacation properties and didn't need it. And so that was hard because I loved it, and he built it, and it was real hard for me to turn my back on that. But it had to be done, so we did it. And we, as I say, first we moved to Wisconsin, and we lived there for 1.5 years. And I sold all the furniture and everything. I was a big antique collector, and he and I did that together. And so it was really hard to lose all those things because they meant something. And I had family pieces and things I'd bought. And anyway, the woman that bought my house said, just leave everything. I'll take whatever you want to leave and pay you whatever you ask. So we were very fortunate in the people that bought our property. So we moved to Wisconsin, bought a townhouse, loved it, and bought new furniture. Well, lived there 1.5 years and sold all that. So when we were coming here, we moved in with one of my daughters who had a big house. And then she and I and my other daughter went out looking for places to live. And I have to say, I did contact an agency that helped you do that. But I looked at 10 places before I moved here.
So what was your criteria? How did you determine what worked for you?
Well, I wanted to be someplace where you could progress because I didn't know how long my husband would be able to live in independent living. And so I wanted to be where we'd be together even if he had to move on. And so that was number one. And then we had a wonderful dog that I loved dearly, and that he did too. And she had to come with us. And of course, this place, Paradise, is very dog friendly. And so the 3 of us moved in, and that was good.
A lot of people don't realize you can allow pets.
Yes, here you can have cat or dog. In fact, some people even have 2 of one or the other. And they screen them when you move in. But if they're people and dog friendly or cat friendly, then it's not a problem. And management here love dogs, so it's been very good. That part. Unfortunately, I lost my dog too, so kind of lost everybody. But anyway, those were big considerations.
Okay, so you had very specific needs that you were looking for, and you found this beautiful community Paradise Village.
Well, my daughter my youngest daughter teaches about 3 blocks from here, and she knew people whose parents lived here. And I looked mostly in North County because my other daughter lived up there, and that daughter lives in Point Loma. So North County made sense. But it was very expensive up there, number one. And number two, I didn't find any place that just made me really happy.
Like it was your vibe.
Yeah,
It was your...
right. I just had a feeling. So we came here, and my son-in-law that lives up in North County insisted we were living with them. And I didn't want to do that. I mean, they had plenty of room. That wasn't a problem.
Why is that? Why is it that you don't
Well, I will tell you why. So anyway, to finish what we were talking about, my daughter arranged an appointment here, and we came here, and that son-in-law and that daughter came with me. And when we left here, he said, "When can I move in?"
Right?
And so that said to me he would be okay if I said I was moving here. So, but why I felt that way is because both of them worked, and they were involved in a lot of things. And I knew the day would come when we couldn't drive. And I thought, I'm going to be stranded out here, because they lived not rurally, but they lived, you know, not close to a lot of people, and I wouldn't be able to go. So I just thought, gosh, I don't want to be stranded out here. And they're working or going or coming and doing whatever, and they should. And so I just said, you know, I really think we need to go where there's help and where there are a lot of people. So that was my
So
reason.
you were proactive, and it was your choice.
It was definitely my choice, yeah.
And I love that empowerment, that no, you didn't wait till somebody told you this is what you needed to do.
No, I made my own decision. Fortunately, he couldn't make the decision with me, which I would have preferred. But at that point, I was taking care of everything, so I just decided this was it, and we did it.
So if you were to look back in time, Sally, what would you have done differently?
I might have tried to get him medical help earlier with the Alzheimer's. I mean, he was taking care of the other things, but the Alzheimer's, it just creeps up on you, and you don't realize how bad it is until
It's
all
really
of a sudden you have to. And if I looked back on it, I would have gotten him palliative care earlier. He did, at the very end, have hospice, but I firmly believe in those things, and I would have done that earlier if I'd have really been aware. And I've told my children, don't wait till the end. I'm on board with it, so when my time comes, you connect me, because I won't give you trouble.
So you moved in together as a couple.
Yes, we did.
And what benefits came with you moving in together as a couple? Even if he was declining.
But he was still, like, he could still walk the dog out to the dog park. And he met some people here that were very kind to him and very supportive. Nobody was judgmental. Nobody looked at him like, you know, I mean, everybody was supportive. He didn't make a lot of friends because he was too far down the road, and he spent a lot of time just sitting watching television. But I would say to him, you know, do you feel bad about all this? And he'd go, no, I'm happy. And
but I think it's great that you lived together.
Oh, right up till the end, yeah.
So a lot of people don't realize, they think you have to be separate. So in this, there are communities that allow you to live together even though one person is declining?
Yes, because a lot of people here are declining and have all sorts of problems, but they have home health aides that some of them are from outside, but some of them are employees here. And they're allowed to stay until they really can't, and have all kinds of different support. And so we were in that same situation. I could handle the things that he needed. And so I never had to have help of any kind for him particularly.
So you came here, but before you got here, you were already handling a lot of your
I was doing the finances
everything.
and all that kind of thing, yes.
So how did you feel once you got here with the community support? Like,
Well, it was a relief because, you know, if I had questions, there was somebody to go to for answers besides my children. And not that they weren't helpful. And my son is my financial advisor because that's what he does for a living. So I had that kind of support, but it's nice to be able to talk to someone who is not so involved. And you asked me, you know, how I feel about my children telling me things. I don't have a problem with that, but on the other hand, one good thing about living someplace like this is you're living with people who have similar challenges and problems. And that's very helpful because they understand, you know, that you're not just some foolish old person, but you're a person who's really trying to keep it all together, but your body's challenging you, and or your mind for that matter. And so I think it's very helpful that people here understand better than most.
so you have that connection with others for that people understand you.
Right.
What activities do you do here?
Well, my husband really never got involved in anything. I did shuffleboard bowling for a long time. And I didn't do, the big thing here is, as I'm sure
dart.
Mary Ann told you about the dart baseball. I didn't ever do that because I broke my shoulder and I can only lift one arm so far, and it's the one that I'd throw with. So I didn't ever do that, but I started out having a therapist in the pool, and now I just do it myself.
Nice.
Because I've done it long enough that I know pretty much what I need to do. So I'm real involved with that. And we have a group called the Women's Friendship Group, and I've been the chairperson for that for...
You started this group.
No, someone started it
it.
before me.
Okay. And what is a women's friendship
It's
group?
just, we have a speaker every month. Like last month, we had a woman come who really works for the River Project, but she spoke about her grandfather, who was an early settler up in the Imperial Valley, came from India with a group of guys, and they settled there, and they were the original farmers up there. And so she spoke, and she's been here several times and talked about different subjects. This month we're having a physician that's talking about planning for the end of your life. We do all kinds of different, we had a woman come that brought 2 dogs, and one was a sheepdog and was trained to herd sheep, and the other was a boxer that she got at a rescue first and trained that dog to herd sheep, which is highly unusual. Anyway, the people love the dogs. And then when we're through in here with the lecture, which anybody can come to, we go across the hall and have lunch. And that is just for 40 women because that's all we can accommodate, so you have to sign up for that. So it's really been fun. I've probably been heading that up for, well, at least 4 years because my husband's been gone that long. And I was doing it before he passed away, so.
So let's go back to that. You've been married, you were married for 64 years. Well, you were married for what, like 60, how many years were you married before you moved?
61.
61 years, okay? You've done everything with your husband. You've been with him that long.
Right.
How was it when he was no longer here?
Well, it's horrendous.
Yes.
In the first place.
Yes.
I mean, I miss him terribly. There's not a day go by that I don't think about it and miss him. And when I have to make a major decision, that, again, I miss him terribly because we always talked it over and made a decision together. I will say, though, that as he got worse and worse and wanted to do less and go out less and so forth, I did go out and make some friends, which carried me through the worst of it. And
That's the power of community.
oh, that is, I just can't stress how important that is. And people here are very open and friendly. And part of that is because they've gone through challenges of their own and had to come here from wherever they wanted to be. So they get it. And, you know, they just understand better than my own children do because they haven't been faced with these things. So it looks different to them than it looks to somebody on the inside. So I find it very helpful. And even the staff here and the management here really seems to be more caring than lots of places. And like our dining room staff, we all just love them. They're like our grandchildren, and they're just super. And I just feel that we really have a community here that really cares and works hard at being helpful and friendly.
And you mentioned the power of community. What's life after loss like, being in a community? And you moved in before that loss happened.
Yeah, I was here probably a year and a half before it really got to the point that it was difficult. And I have to say, I was very fortunate. My husband never had to leave me until he left me a week to go to the hospital and then went to rehab for 5 weeks. But beyond that, we were never separated. So, you know, he was able to shower and dress and all that. And we would go down to the dining room and eat. But I find that women or men, both, who have spouses really tend to eat with their spouses and don't mingle much. And I did it myself, so I know. But when I was ready to branch out, when I lost him, there were people there that were ready to have me. And so that's been so helpful. And now we just, you know, we're even planning a cruise together. We've done one and we're going to do another one.
Oh, wow. Where are you planning to go?
We're just going down the Mexican Riviera this time. Last time we went to New England. So, but there were 6 of us that time. There's 4 this time. And then my brother and sister-in-law are going to go. So, you know, there's all that kind of thing going on too. And we go on outings twice a month. We go for lunch once and dinner once, and we plan really nice places to go and take the bus. And so that's also really fun.
I love how you really emphasize on the power of community. And especially now that, you know, your husband is no longer here and you were with him for so many years. I remember you mentioning it was hard to function without him.
Well, it is, yes.
But because of your community that you were able to build while you were here, it minimized that feeling of being alone.
I never felt isolated, and I never felt like I couldn't handle the things I had to handle. I mean, not that I do the best job in the world, but I always felt that I had support if I needed it. And that's really helpful. We have a friend who lives on my floor, and the people on my floor really are pretty connected. And she fell and was in very difficult situation, had to have major surgery, and she had a dog. Well, a group of us pitched in and walked the dog and took care of the dog while she was in the hospital for several months. And that's the kind of support you get here.
Wow, for several months. That would be very difficult to find if you were living at home by yourself.
Well, you'd have to pay. And I mean, of course, we just did it.
Yes.
So, I mean, as I say, we feel like we have what we call our chosen family, people that we really rely on that really aren't relatives at all. So it's been very good in that sense. I mean, I still miss my husband and that whole dynamic. I mean, there's nothing that replaces that. But I don't feel in any way isolated or like I don't have friends or resources. So
I want to go back to your husband was a teacher. You worked for, it's not like you were business owners or anything like that, because for a lot of people, they think like, oh, it's only for the wealthy. Senior living communities for, what message do you have for people that may be in that situation and may look into this option?
Well, let's face it, living in a private, so to speak, residence is not inexpensive. I mean, that's the truth of it. It is not inexpensive. However, it's doable if you're really careful and if you really think about your choices. I think it's really important that you don't just go the first place you look at, that you really take time, if you can afford to do that, if you have the time, take time and tour several places. Look into the finances, look into what the expectations are, and then you know, if you can afford to do it, then, like for instance, I didn't want to go someplace where you had to pay a big amount down. I really didn't. Number one, I couldn't afford it. Number two, it didn't appeal to me. There are all kinds of options out there, and you just have to really weigh them carefully and find some place that you can afford, that you fit into. And I feel I was very fortunate in doing that.
Great. So if you were to, what advice would you give seniors, couples, or even families? What advice would you give to people today?
If I were to give advice as to how to age gracefully, I would say number one would be exercise. I think people in my generation didn't, by and large, do lots of actual exercise. I mean, we did activities, but we didn't do it purposefully. And if I had it to do over again, I would do it purposefully, because I do have some disabilities that I think in large part could have maybe been avoided had I really been paying attention, and I wasn't. Number two, I would put as much money as I could possibly swing in my retirement account, because you do need it. And there's no getting around it. It's just not. At some point, you have to give up your car, if you were a driver, and now you have to pay for transportation. And that's not a cheap date. So, you know, there's all these little side things that you don't think of. So I would recommend that people really give serious thought to how much they squirrel away for their retirement. Because it's certainly nice to be able to retire and do some of the things you'd like to do, both as a private individual in your own home, but also even someplace that's like this, because there's sure options out there if you can do it. So those are two of the kinds. And then I'd say, check around before you really need to go someplace and see what it is you really want. Because you don't really know until you get there just what's necessary. I mean, did I know that an indoor pool was going to be really essential in my life? No, I did not. I lucked out and came here, and we have a lovely indoor pool. And it just makes it
It's a beautiful indoor pool.
Yes, it really is. And it makes it so easy to do that water therapy, because it's just comfortable and nice and easy. So I think it's really important that you really look into the places and that you talk to people that have lived there a while to know what it's really like.
Great. No, that's great advice. Thank you so much for that, Sally. So now I want you to share some wisdom. Okay. What's one lesson from your 64 years of marriage that you'd want to pass on?
Choose your battles.
That's a good one. I've been married for almost 20 years, so yes, choosing your battles.
Well, and not just with your spouse, but generally in life, choose your battles. Because if you only battle when it's absolutely necessary, life's much easier.
Okay.
So that would be one thing I would say. And then I would say good friends really matter. And to me, my religion is important, and that matters to me. And that's another thing about here and most senior residences have access to different religions. Here we have a Jewish service, we have a Catholic service, we have a non-denominational service, and of course, Paradise is owned by people that are Adventist. Now that doesn't cause problems for those of us that aren't, but I think that's another thing people need to realize, that you need to look at places that fit for you in those kind of ways too.
I see. No, great advice. Okay, what's one thing younger people don't understand about aging?
I think that's a really good question and something that I have to say bothers me. I think younger people don't realize that as you get older, your body may fail you, but if your mind is good, you're the same person on the inside. And you become less relevant as you get older. And I don't like not being relevant. I mean, I keep up with the news and the politics and all that. And so I think I'm pretty relevant, even though I'm here and I can't do a lot of the volunteer work I used to do and things. But I don't think younger people understand that just because you're older doesn't mean you don't feel the same on the inside.
I love that you said that, Sally, because truly is one of my mission. Is, unfortunately, you're absolutely right that many see seniors as maybe like old and grumpy and, like what you said, irrelevant. But when I see seniors, I see wisdom, I see just legacy, and they are truly the foundation of our present, And because I think of my parents, and it's like, wow, I know what my parents have gone through. And yes, you're right, maybe the body is not, but they still have the same wisdom. To this day, I ask my parents for advice because they are truly still that same person. So thank you so much for sharing that, and I want to bring light to that.
I think that's a really wonderful thing, and that's true of our staff here. So many of them are people from this area, and they just really treat us like we were their grandparents, and I love it. Aww. It's just really special.
I love it. Thank you so much. Okay, one last question before your funny story. What's the secret to a happy life?
Well, it certainly helps to have a wonderful family, which I'm very fortunate to have, and good friends, and enough money that you can live decently. I think there are people that just choose to be happy, and then there are people that just choose to be grumpy.
So let's choose to be happy.
So I, every day, try to choose to be happy. And I have a mission in life. I think my mission is to be as good as I can be and to make my place that I live as happy as possible.
I love it.
So that's my mission.
Okay, now I want to know, we have this segment called Senior Moment. Okay, tell me a time where you had a senior moment, a funny story where you had a senior moment and you realized it was a senior moment.
Well, a couple weeks ago, I went to Nashville for 3 weeks to be with my daughter and granddaughter and my granddaughter's new baby, and it was wonderful. But I get very cold out there because they don't keep their house as warm as I keep mine, and I get really cold. So I took every piece of warm clothing I had with me, and I was packing my suitcase, and I had it on my dining room table, and I had it just crammed, and it was a big suitcase. So I couldn't get it closed. And I thought, oh, I've seen people on television put it on the floor and sit on it. No problem. So I put the suitcase on the floor and I sat on it. I couldn't get up. I sat there for half an hour. Now my son-in-law and granddaughter were coming to pick me up to take me to the airport. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I can't get up. So fortunately, I was close enough to the end table near where I have my recliner that I could reach my cell phone. So I reached my cell phone, I called security. Security came right up and he says to me, are you injured? Do you need to have lift assist from the EMTs? I said, I sat on this suitcase and I am flying in 2 hours. No, I'm not hurt. I just can't get up. So he helped me up, which they really aren't supposed to do, but he knew I wasn't injured in any way. And he just gave me an arm and I was up and on my way. I laughed so hard, I tell you. Talk about senior moments. I didn't even think about the fact that I can't get up off the floor.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that senior moment of yours. For those sharing their senior moments, okay, we have this special shirt. If you take a look at it.
Whoops.
So you are now a senior moment champion.
Oh, yay. I love it, and I will wear it.
So again, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Sally, for taking the time to meet with me today and sharing your story and hopefully inspiring our viewers to be inspired to look into their options, to be proactive in the same way that you did.
Well, and I think that's what's so important is that people, before they start this whole process, that they really look at their options and that they choose medical people that listen to them. Because I've gone to doctors who say, well, what do you expect? You're old. And I do not accept that. I leave immediately and find doctors that are interested in, you know, in your situation and want to help you be as good as you can be. I realize that you wear out, and that's just the way it is. But I think what you're doing is so important because people really do need a hand. And as I say, there are agencies out there that help you, and they really help, and they don't cost anything. And so I think for lots of people, that's really a good thing.
Yes.
But what you're doing is great.
Thank you so much, Sally. And so for everybody here, that really is the goal of Let's Talk Senior Living, is to create a platform to educate, empower, and really move people to take action, to be proactive. Start creating your village. Look at all your options so that you do not wait till you're in crisis mode. So again, thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion today. And again, as a reminder, Ephesians 6:2, honor your father and mother. Have a great day, everybody.